Sweet. Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. Perhaps for those of you out there who don't know who you are, would love to get a little bit of background on like where you work and what your focus is, and we can kick it off from there.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Matt Nadler, BDR over at Retool, which is a platform for creating internal software. Yeah, been with the company for about a year, and my role is getting people excited about the product and bringing in new logos to the business.
Yeah. And no one really like graduates college and is, I want to go be an AE. So I always like to start these things with like, how'd you get into sales?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I actually studied chemical engineering, started my career at a large chemicals company, and my last role there was on the more customer facing side. So I had an epiphany of, hey, I really like doing this type of work, and then was able to join a startup in 3D printing space, worked with them on the sales side for about 4 years and just kept moving closer and closer to being both on the sales side and also more on the tech side. So yeah, really just enjoyed doing work that was customer facing. Ended up discovering Retool through a friend. And 1 year later, here we are.
I love it.
Yeah.
Our stories are very similar. I started with a company called Granger out of school,
Mm,
slinging toilet paper and light bulbs. And I think all of us figure out at some point, hey, we like this human relationship thing. But I think a really important piece that you touched on is you have to believe and be excited in what you sell. Because what we do is a hard job. And if you don't have the passion behind it, you might be good with people, but I think it shows if you're not super into what you're selling.
yeah, agreed.
Cool. So there's a million sales podcasts out there in the world. What we don't need is like yet another one saying, "Oh, you should personalize messaging." But we like to get to the hot takes as quickly as possible here at Qualis. I want to start with kind of one of three questions here. The first being is what should everyone stop doing in sales?
Stop doing. I would say, I'm going to actually say two things. I would say stop sending email blasts and also stop sending long emails. I feel like unpersonalized, super long emails is the worst of both worlds. So, really, something that's quick, digestible, easy to say what you do, and easy to for someone to figure out actually how it fits in with their company, I feel is incredibly valuable. Nothing that's super long, in my opinion, that gets read or is worth the time that it takes to put into it. So yeah, don't email blast and don't email blast with a long email.
Yeah, I'm aligned, especially like the length piece. My first VP always used to hammer like the phrase Twitter speak into my head,
Mm,
which is
mhm.
basically so many of the folks that I reach out to and you reach out to are execs who are reading your email on a phone, right? So if you can't quickly convey your message, edit. So I'm right there with you, Matt. Next up is on that same note, what's the most creative approach you've ever taken to account research, whether that's a prospecting email or breaking into an account of any form or fashion?
Mhm. Something that I like to do if a prospect say has a physical storefront, just go to the store, take a picture in front of it. If it's a restaurant, order something, let them know what my order is. Really just add that personalization piece. That's also super easy to do. And then it's pretty great account research. I'm able to actually see what the storefront looks like and get a better understanding of the business rather than just scrolling through LinkedIn or clicking around on their website.
Yeah, I love that. I've heard of people like signing up for an email drip campaign or something of that nature, but I haven't really encountered many people who do the picture piece. I did have one SDR back during COVID who took pictures in the Chick-fil-A drive-through line with everyone wearing their masks. Very
Yeah,
iconic approach, but I think those little things like where you go the extra mile and you research where a location is in your city and you physically go there and you take the picture, it's less about the picture quality and it's more about just showing I care enough to know that you're not just another prospect in my hit list. Like I know who you are and maybe I even love your brand and I want to
right.
help you. And I think when you can come from that point of view, it's, hey, I'm a customer. I love these three things you do. I don't love that thing. Let's work on this together. I think that really shines through that like genuine desire to help.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it helps humanize too. I feel like the best outreach that I have is when it can be more conversational, more personal. So even just adding a little something in there, if somebody sees a picture and I'm in front of their store, instantly
Yeah,
they're like, oh, this isn't just another random email. This is somebody that actually cares and somebody that I'm more likely to engage with.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. If we go back to Matt at the chemical company and before he got into this big bad world of selling software,
Hmm.
if you could hop into the DeLorean, the time machine, and go back and tell that younger Matt one thing, what's the one piece of advice you would give him before he entered sales?
Yeah. I feel like this is a good segue from what we just talked about. Really just make it personal. Really just strive to make that genuine connection. I find is more valuable than any features you could throw at someone or writing them a 5 paragraph essay of why they should go with your business. Really just being able to make that connection be genuine is super important. And a way to help develop that, I would say listen to a ton of recordings from reps that are already in the role. That's the best way to understand how conversations go and really get a feel for what prospects are asking, what's underneath those questions, and just get a better feel for how to position your product and really just delve into those conversations to bring the most value.
Yeah. I love that piece around like listening to people who are already great at what you're trying to do. I think so many of us grew up with just pop culture around like sales being like a cheesy job, a slimy job where like you had to force someone into doing something. And I think the first time I watched a Gong video of someone who was like eloquent and helpful and knowledgeable about what they did, that's actually something that like I want to strive to do. I want to be like that person. And they're also helping people solve their problems. So I think part
Right.
of it that you mentioned is like solving for that negative connotation of what people think sales is. True selling doesn't feel like there's a lot of tension at all. It just feels like you understand what your customer is trying to do and you're guiding them through that motion. I love both of those pieces, both around personalization, but also more so around like figuring out who does something really well and just learning through osmosis and listening to them so that you can up level yourself.
Totally. Yeah. A lot of, I feel like the best calls that I hear, it's more just about the tone. It goes back to it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. So the more that you can pick up on that, understand just what the general vibe of the conversation is and focus more on, hey, how did I feel listening to the call versus what was actually said in the transcript, I feel is something that's a really powerful takeaway.
Could not agree more with that last piece, especially as like software gets more and more competitive. We're all somewhat pitching similar value prop around how we get there. I think how you differentiate yourself is truly listening and showing that empathy and showing that connection. And then also like the confidence and the place that you're conveying yourself around what you're saying. I think those lead to like real relationships and trust. And it's the reason why sellers haven't and probably won't be replaced by AI because I think sitting across, whether it's the table or the Zoom human to human, there's something special about that where if you can handle it yourself well and convey yourself, I think that's how you can really build trust. So I love those examples.
Yeah.
If we can shift gears a little bit, Matt, I would love to hear some of the ways that you are utilizing Koala today. And if you have one or two explicit stories around how you've utilized Koala to find an opportunity and break into them creatively, I think the whole audience would love for you to be able to share kind of some of the ways you've been able to do that.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like a good way to set this up is just talk a little bit more about Retool as a business. So
Yeah.
we are, as I said before, a developer platform, and you could essentially build any app in Retool that you would if you were building from scratch in React. So we're essentially looking for businesses that have software. Pretty much every business has software. So it could be really tough to outbound target, find who good prospects are. So something that's been really valuable with Koala is if we see a company that it's a logo that we may not have gone after initially, or it's somebody that we are targeting pretty heavily, being able to understand, oh, they're actually looking at Retool. Oh, they're reading our docs. This is somebody that I should go after. I find that's just incredibly valuable. A few examples that I've thought of. One, we were working with a pretty much like an industrial machinery company. So they were looking to go through a digital transformation, somebody that probably would not have been on my radar initially, but I saw they had a ton of activity with Koala. I was able to get connected with them and just have a conversation of what they were looking to do. And another space that I've seen this in is more so like on the e-commerce side, same deal. So company looking to update their ERP, really just make things more streamlined and looking to build apps and Retool to help move that forward. Again, someone that probably would not have been on our top target list, but by being able to see, no, they're actually interested and they're actually starting to build and Retool really just says, oh, this is someone that we should definitely bring in the door and have a conversation with.
Yeah. When your TAM, your total addressable market is effectively everyone under the sun that's built software, right? I imagine the guesswork that goes into figuring out where to prioritize your time can be really difficult, right? So it's not just enough for you probably to know which accounts are on the website because everyone can and is building software. it sounds like what you're really looking for is like, where are the breadcrumbs along the way that someone is interacting with me in a meaningful way that gives me enough signal that, oh, me as a rep, when I fire up my cup of coffee in the morning, this is someone who's worth spending my time with.
Totally. Yeah. And it could even be we saw that they had some intent and really just being able to connect the dots around a specific product that they were looking to build, whether it was external apps, internal apps, AI. By being able to really hone in on what they were looking at, we can just have a much more powerful conversation versus if we were just guessing or doing a spray and pray approach.
Yeah. I think it goes back to your original notes around like personalization, but not just so much about who the person is, but also what are they actually trying to do? And I think traditionally sales has been a really hard job because you're like, I have an idea of what you might be doing, but until I speak to you face to face, I don't really fully understand perhaps what might be important to you. And part of that is why we get paid to do a job is to listen and uncover things. But I think there are pieces of data that's available to us that you can understand. Here's where a customer's at in their customer journey or their evaluation or retool, and here's what's important to you. And to me, that shifts the conversation to being like a sales assist motion versus can I get you on a call and qualify you? It's more, think you might be doing this. How do you consider this? And that to me is like a two-way conversation to where you start to become a true advocate with your customer versus just getting them on the phone to have another qualified lead.
100%. Yeah. We can truly meet clients where they're at in the sales process. So just being able to understand if they just came across Retool randomly, if they're already building out a POC on their side, if they saw Retool a couple of years ago and now they're revisiting it, by being able to have that data from the get-go, we can again just have a more meaningful conversation and shorten the sales cycle that way. And also just bring a ton more value to them because we're not just starting from a random point. We can actually have a
Yeah.
catered approach when we're speaking to them.
Yeah. I've heard the phrase like earn the right to have the customer conversation. And it sounds like that's what you're doing around like really understanding where they're at and then having a meaningful, helpful conversation. To me, that's when like sales is at its highest form, right? Is you're actually helping people and you each are getting value from the exchange. That's what we're all striving for. It's a lot easier said than done, but awesome to hear like the data that is assisting you to do that. Love to hear if you have any other examples of how you've used Koala as well.
I think it's also valuable for folks that we may have spoken to in the past and we're not sure where those conversations are going to go. I feel like it's a pretty common thing across
Yeah.
sales. You have a great first call, you have the right stakeholder in there, everything sounds good, and then they just go dark. So
Yep.
you can actually see, hey, wait a minute, we haven't spoken to them. They're not replying to my emails, but they're still showing a good amount of activity on Retool. Really just being able to help personalize those follow-up messages and continue the conversation that way instead of just getting ghosted. I find it's again super valuable.
Yeah. I think about that even just like in our personal lives when we want to like maybe make a big purchase that's really important to us, whether you're like looking at buying a house or a car. It's pretty normal to want to go in and look around and test drive the thing, but then also maybe to want your own space to think about what's important to you. And I think sometimes as salespeople, we forget that. It's like, oh, you raise your hand to talk to us. Let's get this thing done. And the intentions there are good. But I think human behavior is, hey, great first conversation. I might even like you, but let me go do a little bit of research on my own because it's important for
Uh,
me to feel like this is my decision and I'm not being sold to. And I think as salespeople, we can get better on the patience front, but what you're describing is also it is easier to be patient if you know where that person's at and you know what they're doing. And maybe you can even help them along the way. And maybe it doesn't shorten the sales cycle from 3 months to 6 months, but maybe it takes it from 6 months to 4.5 because you're able to supplement with something that's truly important for them. So I think that's a great call out because so many times customers have good conversations with us and then ghost. But I think there's a real reason behind that.
mhm. Yeah. And I feel like it makes it's like they're not truly ghosted. They're just taking
Yeah.
their time like any normal rational buyer would do. I guess from the sales standpoint, it helps lower the anxiety, make it a little
Yeah.
bit easier to be patient, say, oh, they're just exploring the web pages. Oh, they're starting to build a couple of apps. Maybe I'll check up with them in a week or two. Or, hey, I could probably send some valuable content their way as they're going through this process. Yeah, it really just helps. It makes it easy to be patient on the sales side.
I think half the battle of our jobs is the battle between the ears, right? Around keeping yourself calm, but then also reporting upwards to your VPs of sales who are going to ask you where a deal is at. And if you can convey where they're at, not just where you think they might be or how you feel about the deal, but truly say they're a technical validation right now. Here's some things that they're doing, right? Here's my plan to try to accelerate that. It's just a much different conversation that kind of shifts internally. For the folks who aren't as familiar and aren't an expert with Koala, would you mind showcasing some of what you talked about today if you're able to share your screen?
Sure. Hold on. Cool. The way that I have this set up is basically Koala is integrated with Salesforce. So I have filters set up to show which accounts are in the pool, which ones are in my names, and then which ones I'm teamed up with on AEs. I have my market segment been in there or logged up in there on the mid market side. And I have HQ is in the US. And this is something that I really like. I can flag open opportunities is 0. So I'm not actively prospecting into someone that could be in the middle of doing a POC with us. I find that that's super helpful. So yeah, these are all the accounts that I have in here. Something that I really like to look at is the intent score and then also the trend. I find is just super valuable because someone could be an active user of Retool, but nothing is really changing on their side. I find that when I can identify where a spike or where it changes, that's a really great time to have a conversation because the prospect is exhibiting different behavior and it indicates that, hey, this is probably a great time to talk with them, help them along their journey, see what they're looking to build, see what they're evaluating Retool for, and then drive the conversation from there.
Yeah, I think that's great. I earlier in my career, I used to use the phrase like a lot of sales is based on luck and timing. And really what I meant there is you just have to keep doing the activity and hope to get lucky. I think what this does here is basically showing you can understand when the timing is right to reach out, right? And it's not always going to be perfect when someone's surging, but if you can see perhaps when someone is re-engaging with your platform, I think you can pick and choose your timing to be much more effective and probably increase your luck to an effect. I love that you shared that. And I also love that you shared that like the number of opportunities. There's a lot of software companies out there today that have way more accounts in their CRM and opportunities for any of the reps to fully cover. And wires get crossed, things happen, and people end up reaching out to others who are actively involved in a POC, and you can maybe mess something up for a rep. I think having the right filters and control over the view you're looking at allows you to make sure that you don't waste any sort of mental sales calories, but also that you're being respectful of your teammates as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you for showing us. Is there anything else in here that you want to show before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm all set. This is, I'll just say the default view that I look for in Koala. And again, yeah, just super powerful when looking at the intent side and also just seeing how many folks from a specific company are visiting the site. Usually I see there's like strength in numbers. So if a bunch of folks are visiting at the same time, that's another really strong indicator for me.
Yeah. All those, again, those little breadcrumbs that lead up to being like, this is someone I should really spend my time with. So, Matt, fantastic to chat today. Fantastic to meet today. Can't believe we haven't met up until this point. I want to end with one fun question. Sales is very fun. I've been doing it for over a decade, but it is one part of my life outside of business world. I love to cook and I love to eat. So my question for you, my friend, is death row meal. What's it going to be?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm going to say steak with some mashed potatoes and chocolate cake to finish that off.
I love it, man. It's a great answer. It's a decadent one.
Yeah. Big steak guy. Happy it's summer. Getting the grill fired up. Definitely a nice porterhouse, a nice ribeye. Makes me pretty happy.
Good man. Thanks again for the time. I appreciate it.